G'day everyone, Perko here with Timbo, two brothers, two countries, one sports obsession. Welcome back to the Touchdowns and Tea Breaks podcast. The show where a couple of Aussie sons, they talk everything from Australian summer cricket to American stadium lights, and where cricket whites and gridiron helmets somehow make perfect sense in the same conversation. Timbo, let's get into it, mate. It's been a big weekend.
Has been a big weekend, Jace. Obviously, starting off late last week with the cricket. We were all hoping that England could make a bit of a game of this. As we know, a 5-game test that finishes in 2 days is appalling. The Poms were talking a lot of smack when they came over here about the Australian team being the worst that they'd ever seen. So going into the second test, we were expecting a lot more from the Englishmen. However, they came true to form and disappointed yet again. You were there, mate. It was barely got into the 4th day, did it not? Is that correct?
I was there for day 3, and Australia just batted really well. In fact, and a legendary knock from Mitchell Starc, scored over, I think, 5 runs, and was the highest scorer for Australia's second innings, or first innings, I should say. And then I thought, mate, it's flat. The wicket's flat. I mean, if Mitchell Starc is scoring 70-plus runs, we're going to be here batting for a while with the English coming out for the second innings. But guess what? It was very short-lived. We took 6 wickets on day 3 in their second innings. So we knew that day 4 was going to be a short day. Now, I got to hand it to the English. They made it a little bit longer than I expected. Oakes, their captain, batted well, stayed in there. It was very boring first session, 2 hours with, I don't know, maybe 20, 30, 40 runs at the most. Mm-hmm. But then we finally got them all out, and then it didn't take much, mate, for us to score the runs needed, and we ended up winning with 8 wickets in hand, but not without a bit of controversy. At the end of the second innings, as Smith was in bat, Jofra Archer, the bowler, started having a bit of a chat with Smith in the middle of the pitch, and actually told Steve to watch his manners, because Steve was hitting him for 4 here and there, told him to watch his manners. So Smith responds to him, mate. He said, legendary response. He says, "Why are you bowling fast when there's nothing on, champion?" He dropped the champion. He calls him a champion. And anyway, long story short, next ball, Archer came bounding in, mate, and he's hit him for 6. Hooked him for 6, and then eventually he's hit another 6 to win the match. And, Steve Smith, he's not going to watch his manners when we're destroying them in less than 5 days every single time. So it was a great time. Timbo, the Ashes, it's a unique sporting trophy. And I thought our listeners, they might actually, those that watch the podcast, they might be interested in a little bit of history as to why it's even called the Ashes. Are you familiar, Timbo, how it got started?
Yes, there was something about, people need to understand what cricket's about. They're trying to protect the stumps, which are those 3 wooden sticks, so to speak. On top of those 3 wooden sticks are 2 little bails, as we call them. The idea is to try and knock the bails off the stumps, and then you're out. Something about we burned them a long time ago. We put them in this massive trophy that everyone can sport to see who's got, I guess, what we call sledging rights for 4 years. We only play this game 4 years. 4 years, once in Sydney, in Australia, and then we also go to England and play over there.
That's it. So in 1882, the Australian cricket team went to England and they won the Test series for the first time on English soil. They had never beaten England, not the series, sorry, just one match. And in the paper the next morning, there was an obituary to English cricket. A guy wrote about the fact that English cricket has now died. It's dead, because the Australians had come and beaten England at their own game. So they literally burned the bails from that game, and they stuck them, Timbo, this is hilarious, they stuck them in a tiny little urn. So, when somebody passes away, go to the crematorium, and you put the ashes into some sort of an urn, and it sits on coffee table or somewhere or whatever. So this is the urn, Timbo, that we're talking about. As you can see, It's a little wooden urn, and it just says the Ashes on it. And then it actually has a clipping. Those words there are from the obituary that was written in 1882 describing the death of English cricket. For our watchers of the podcast, the size of this urn that we're playing for, as Timbo said, every 4 years, mate, she's pretty tiny. These are the
Yeah.
current Australian and English cricket captains, team captains for the national team. And that is the urn that they're holding there. It's so small, you can't even have two men holding it because it's about the size of a person's palm, basically. An adult man's palm is the size of this thing. So that's what all the rivalry is about, is trying to win that urn back so that you can go home and tell your nation, we've got the trophy again. We've got the little urn. That's what it's all about.
I like how small it is. It's kind of reflective of the current English side's determination, will,
Yes.
heart. I mean, I've heard Ian Botham blow up this week. Like, they're all blowing up, saying that
Oh,
these guys have they got nothing. What have they got?
well, Timbo, after the second test, instead of going back in the nets and preparing for the third test in Adelaide, they've headed up to the Sunshine Coast to relax in Noosa on the beach. Mate, they are not happy back in England with their team relaxing after a 2-game whitewashing so far. So I think there's going to be a lot of expectations on the English come Adelaide for the third test.
And they should have been out there before playing with the pink ball, because obviously the ball is a little bit different. It's obviously a day-night setting, which is a little bit different. So, we were sort of hanging around. They couldn't even hang around long
No.
enough. You want to start bowling late in the afternoon, correct? Yeah, when the shadows are
That's
coming
it. You
over.
want
You
you
want
want
That's when you
twilight,
want to go out
especially
there.
when the lights come on. You want to get that new ball when the lights come on. That's when it's most dangerous. But they just couldn't get there. They couldn't do it. So Timbo, the big question is this right now. Travis Head, okay, Kawaja, he comes in. We
Mm,
talked about this last week.
yep.
You said, mate, hey, if whoever replaces Kawaja comes in and knocks 80 or 100 off of 80 balls, mate, Kawaja's done. What do you reckon? Travis Head has done well now for another series, another test. Where do you think that leaves Kawaja?
I I'm not convinced that Head has done enough.
Okay.
Um, I think if he would have come out and dominated, I don't really think he dominated. He got off to a bit of a slow start. Mind you, I was probably in bed at about 2:30 watching this. I just didn't see the confidence that he brought in the first test. In that situation where they were like, "Who's going to go out and open the batting?" Was it second innings? And he was like, "Yep, I'm your man." I'm your Huckleberry. So I think Kawaja's still all right. I mean, he's got a lot of experience. He's got a lot of, obviously, innings under his belt. I just think he still has something to offer the Australian team, and I just don't think Hetty did enough.
I don't think he's just completely replaced Kawaja, but I do think Kawaja's in trouble if he doesn't pay attention. I think there could be trouble coming for him. Now, Timbo, let's talk some traditions when it comes to cricket in Australia. This will be something our American listeners and watchers may or may not be aware of, and certainly is different to American sports. Aussies tend to use the Test cricket to dress up and is kind of get into costume for the test. What's your favorite costume that you've seen Aussies get into when it comes to attending the cricket? What do you love to see out there?
Well, I'm a bit of a traditionalist. I
Okay.
think one of the original costumes that people were getting into, obviously, was the beloved, Richie Benaud. Richie was a commentator for a very long time, played for Australia, very well respected amongst all Australians. I would even go to say that he's very much respected around the world for what he has contributed to the game. And Richie would always, wear the white, the cream, the beige, the off-white.
Mm.
The eggshell. So I loved it when people were dressing up as Richie Benaud. I know that it has come a long way since then, and
Oh,
even Disney
mate.
might be in there. Or
Mate, there's all sorts of stuff going on nowadays. It's like basically for our American listeners, the best way to describe it is cricket, test cricket costumes are a little bit like Halloween without the pumpkins and without any trick or treating. So one of my favorites, Timbo, one of my favorites is the here. I'll just share my screen because there's a great clip of these guys coming into the Test cricket. It's the Stormtroopers. I absolutely love the Stormtroopers. Check out this crowd that comes into the Test cricket from time to time. Here they come. There's the Stormtroopers. You've got Darth Vader, Yoda. They're all coming in. And eventually during the day, you actually get to see Princess Leia. She'll come in as well. But this is just quintessential Test cricket. Absolutely quintessential Test cricket is what that is. Now, Timbo, I noticed that I actually sat in a section, Timbo, that had a few people coming in and out. And we had some English supporters that came in. These English supporters came and they came as cows, the inflatable cow jumpsuits that they were wearing. Now, unfortunately, because they were inflatable, they got a little bit too large sometimes, and you'd actually find people behind you or sitting around you a little bit annoyed because your costume's blocking the view from time to time. And we actually were pulling on the tails of these cows every time they tried to go out to grab a snack or a drink or something like that. We'd grab their tails as they're coming back in just for some fun. But one particular fan, Timbo, he did not take a liking to these cow costumes. And so he actually took a little bit of matters into his own hands. And let me show you what happened with our friends, these pommies, in their cow costumes, mate. It was
right
hilarious.
next to where
this
you're
is what
sitting.
happens when you combine. Mate, this is exactly where I was sitting. It was literally right behind us. And these cow costumes, they kept blocking the view, add a bit of alcohol to the conversation, and here's what took place, mate. Here we go.
This will be
The
gold.
cows are talking.
But
Oh!
oh,
And he's taking a shot at the cow. This bloke, Timbo, he's had a few too many, as you can tell. And he saw someone filming the whole thing. It was the guy sitting behind me. That's how I got a hold of the footage. Is that happened on the row behind us. And so I had to ask the guy, I was like, mate, can you share that footage with me? That is hilarious.
That is absolute gold.
But Tim, this brings up a big question. What's the difference between Aussie sports and American sports when it comes to alcohol sales? Because I got to tell you, I was reminded, mate, like it's been a year since I've been at a test match. So they only come around every year. I had forgotten, mate. I was shocked by the level of alcohol consumption at a day of test cricket. Now, granted, you're there for 8 hours. So, I mean, you're having dinner or lunch, you're having tea breaks, all that kind of stuff. But, mate, I reckon the guys around us had to have put away 30, 40 beers during the course of the day. I'm not kidding.
Easy,
it was
easy. Well,
unbelievable.
I mean, isn't it day-night matches where, back in the day, you used to be able to get glass, yeah? And then they canned that, and it went to plastic cups, so you can only drink out of a glass if you're sitting in the members.
That's true. Still the case.
Until you get kicked out of the members. Don't know that's ever happened to, but anyway, let's move on. But they used to go, wasn't it the day-night matches or the one-dayers you could only have, they tried low-alcohol beer?
Well, they've tried that, and they do have sections, Timbo, at the cricket ground that are non-alcoholic sections. So
Bay 13?
Families tend to go over there, and probably not Bay 13, but one of the bays. The families go over there if they don't want to be around alcohol, and rightly so, because you wouldn't want that sort of thing that I just showed happening if you brought your little kids to the cricket match. But, mate, I was shocked because I think I remember going to American football games and that kind of thing, NBA games, that they stopped serving alcohol like in the second half or after the third quarter or something like that. They just stop. The concession stands don't sell it anymore. Mate, these matches at the cricket ground, they're going day-night matches and pink ball tests. They're going till 9:30 at night, and guys are still walking in. You remember the old plastic trays with 4 beers?
Yes.
They're still walking in at 9 o'clock. They've been drinking since 2 in the afternoon. And, mate, they just go on and on and on. It's funny, but it's probably not that funny at the same time because it can lead to that kind of chaos that
True.
we watched on the row
True.
behind us.
There is a
Yeah,
fine line between, staying hydrated,
yeah,
with
yes,
certain fluids. But it was very
yes,
frustrating when you're standing there in line, waiting half an hour to get your maximum 4 beers, and the bloke in
yes.
front of you, obviously light beer in my case, um, obviously, and then you get to the front of that line, and the bloke in front of you goes, "Oh, I'll have 1 beer, please." Like, that's just
You're
almost
like, mate,
un-Australian.
we
Like,
need more efficiency. In fact, every time people were coming back to our row, if they were empty-handed, I was actually sending them back, Tim. I was saying, "No, I'm not getting up. I'm
ah,
not getting up and letting you come down the row again if you just went for a toilet break, because I know you got 6 mates down the end. In a moment, they're gonna be going out again. I'll be standing up again." So I was very adamant you could not come back empty-handed because I'm not getting up and down
it's
for these
un-Australian.
yahoos that it's un-Australian. They don't know how to be efficient when it comes to their beverages. All right, Timbo, cricket, mate, we could talk about it all day, but we got to get to college football. This weekend,
Well, please.
big
Let
conference champion weekend, massive SEC conference champion, Big 10, Big 12, Pac 12, every Mountain West, you name it, mate. The ACC, there's so many conferences, but there were
SCC.
a couple of big games, mate, big games. And you watched one of those. Hey, the Big 10 championship game. Tell us what happened. What took place?
So the Big Ten championship game was against Ohio State versus this little school next door called Indiana University. Now, Indiana University has been irrelevant regarding college football since before Bobby Knight was running around in diapers. That's how long they've been
Mm,
irrelevant. However, a couple
mm.
of years ago, they got a new coach, new mental attitude, and he convinced these guys that if they bought in, that they could change this. And they've turned this organization around, this university around in 2 years. Ohio
Unbelievable.
State had only just beaten Michigan last week, which was the first time in over 2,000 days. Sorry, I've got Dave Portnoy on the brain because Dave's a big Michigan fan, and he was running around. So it had been a long time. So everyone had already crowned Ohio State, thinking that they were going to come in, they'll shut down the little guy. It wasn't a very high-scoring game, very defensive game, but they just showed grit and determination. Indiana hasn't won a Big Ten championship since 1967. In fact,
67,
in
Timbo.
fact,
Now,
they hadn't beaten Ohio State since 1988. None of these kids going to
unbelievable.
that school had ever seen them win a championship or beat Ohio State. So, needless to
But
say,
you called it. You called it, Timbo, last week, mate.
thank you.
I remember you brought this up, and I was like, Indiana? I was thinking to myself, Tim's obviously not been following the Big Ten, but you had called it because you were in Fort Wayne over Thanksgiving.
Yes,
You'd been watching the game in Fort Wayne, Indiana, at the bar, and you said, mate, don't sleep on Indiana. Don't sleep on the Hoosiers. You called it, mate. Big Ten champions this year, 13-10 over the Ohio State Buckeyes. Great call, Timbo. You did well with that one, mate. I was very shocked.
credit
I
where
did
credit
not
is
see that
due.
coming,
Yeah, credit where
mate.
credit is
I didn't
due.
see that coming,
Obviously, because they did. Yeah, I didn't get a bet on that game, so um, yeah, what can I say? But mate,
mate.
Indiana are looking good. I'm just glad to see, little David knock out Goliath, so to speak.
Well, let's take a look a little bit ahead to the college football playoffs. There was a couple of other big games that happened over the weekend. One would be, kind of the golden child of college football, the SEC,
hmm
what everybody says, is the golden child because they always get more playoff bids and all that kind of stuff. But granted, I got to say, it was a big game between Georgia and Alabama, big rivalry. And Georgia Bulldogs looks like they came out on top and they've won the SEC championship again for a second year. 28-7 over Alabama. That actually moved Timbo. That moved Georgia up to number 2, Indiana number 1, and Ohio State have dropped to number 3. Do you predict, Timbo, are you willing to predict right here, right now, that we're going to see Georgia and Indiana in the national championship? Do you think that's going to take place?
Jace, I am here now to lay my cards on the table and commit to, yes, Ohio State and Georgia national championship, University of Indiana to win their first national championship. I'm going on the record. I'm all in, all red. No more Crimson Tide. We're all red with Indiana University. Let's go.
Wow, the Hoosiers. You heard it first right here,
Get
folks.
on it.
Indiana, Indiana Hoosiers to win a national championship come 2026 against the Georgia Bulldogs. Timbo, he's put his cards on the table, and we've got the prediction right there. So, mate, big games in college football. We could go on and on
Yes.
and on when it comes to college football, but some big storylines this week in the NFL, mate. There's a lot happening. Let's start with our beloved Broncos.
Oh,
Go Broncos, mate. They are crushing it in Denver right now. We are, what are we, 11-2? Is that right? 11-2.
11-2.
Come on. I don't think we've said that for many years. We've not said that.
No, I think, what have we won? 10 in a row? 11 in a row?
Real 11 in a row, I
I
think.
was-
Broncos. Now, the reality is the Raiders were not, I mean, they're not an incredible team this year, but it is a bit of a
Any year.
rivalry for us. But talking about rivalry or controversy, there's a bit of controversy around the spread on these games. Tell us what's going on, mate.
Yeah, it's gaining momentum. I mean, every single week people are coming out with something. So just to give you a quick little backstory, the Broncos, the spread was 7.5. Some betting venues were 8.5 points. So the Broncos were 10 points ahead. They were covering the spread. They had 16 seconds to go. Okay, up by 10. Game is out. It's done. This game is over. One play, they pass the ball down the field. Guy catches it somewhere down near the 30-yard line. One of the Broncos players goes over and does a bit of a, when they try and slow down the play the ball in rugby league, he kind of did a little bit of that. However, it wasn't much, even Melbourne would have got away with this one. But
The Storm.
next thing you know, with about 4 seconds to go, the referee calls a penalty, delay of game. So they stop the game. Now, any normal team would have gone, right, we don't want to risk anybody getting hurt, so we're just going to go the old victory formation. We'll go the kneel down, the little curtsy that they do.
Yep.
And then that would have been the end of the game. No, not Pete Carroll. No, we're going to send in the field goal team. So obviously he's got a little bit of a nudge, wink, wink. Someone had a bit of a chat in his ear, said, mate, I've just put $1,000 on this game right here at the end.
Yep.
Get out there, kick the field goal, and we'll split it. Now, I can't say that that's what's exactly what happened, but I tell you what, to the rest of the United States of America, that's exactly what happened. It is ridiculous. And so obviously they kick the field goal. They do not make the spread. And Vegas, what do? They're counting dollars.
They are counting dollars. Big business in Vegas, mate. And just so happens it's the home team, so somebody's probably getting a little bit in their back pocket.
Mate, there's too much. There's more backhanders going on over there than there is at a Ukraine wedding.
Okay, so let's take a look at the rest of the league, mate. A lot of things happening with some other teams taking care of business. Seahawks.
Yes.
Stabilizing, do you think so?
No, I think they're stabilizing. They had a pretty easy game, so they didn't really impress me a massive amount. But the Seahawks obviously got it done. Opposition wasn't that hard. Move on.
Vikings quietly dangerous in your mind, do you think?
Vikings are interesting. Some weeks they're up, some weeks they're down. I don't know if I can count on the Vikings. They're only 5-8. They're in the hunt. Are they really going to make it? No, obviously not. Forget about the Vikings. They're out.
Okay. And then the Bills, Josh Allen, is this a resurgence for him, or are we, mate, we got to pay attention to what his history's like?
Mate, yeah, and that's exactly what you said, Jace. It's the history. I mean, the Bills are going back in the day, they lost 4 Super Bowls in a row. I think that hoodoo is still over him. Josh Allen, obviously he's still Superman. He made that break where he ran down the field, scored the touchdown to sort of bring him back into the game. It really does land on the hands of Josh Allen. Like, if he's looking good, they're going to go well. If he's not looking good, if he does a Jalen Hurts, like what Jalen Hurts did last night and threw, 6-7 interceptions? That was ridiculous. There was more interceptions than there was sacks last night. Don't get me started. Minus 4.2 on the fantasy. Not happy, Jan.
happy. No.
But yeah, I'm not.
So what's happening?
I'm not sold on the Bills.
What's happening, Timbo, with the Steelers? They're winning ugly, which is their, that's their classic brand of football. I can't really point any fingers because I think the Broncos have been winning ugly all season long. But a win's a win, like we said last week. Steelers are winning. What are your thoughts, mate? Do you think they're a real contender?
Unfortunately, I do not think that the Steelers are a real contender. I'm sorry about that. To my mate Brian Lewis, I apologise. The Steelers are there. I don't think that they're going to be there in the end. 7-6. They do have a pretty easy, division that they're playing in.
Yeah,
The Ravens are gone. So I just think it's going to see once we get into the playoff picture and these guys have got to play against good teams, who's going to lift? That's the
yeah.
question. I
That
mean, the Bengals are banged up. Joe Burrows is so, So yeah, I think it's an easy. I mean, you only have to win what 8, 9 games to actually be first place in that division. So yeah, it's not the
that's right.
strongest division.
Well, I'll tell you who's having real trouble, Timbo, and that's the Indianapolis Colts, mate. They got some QB challenges now with Daniel Jones, the Achilles injury. What does this do to their season, mate? Do they have a backup? Have they got a plan? What's going on? Am I hearing rumors of some trades? Maybe.
Mate, well, they're obviously, out there shopping around. They've got to come up with something. Leonard looked all right. I don't think he's going to be the answer for the rest of the year. Are they going to lean heavily on Jonathan Taylor? Yes, they will. However, they do need to get a quarterback. Mate, I saw it as soon as Daniel Jones did it. I knew exactly it was an Achilles. Did my Achilles playing hoops years ago, so I knew exactly what had happened, and he wasn't going to
You
be
knew.
back for the rest of the year. Now, the pool of players is the concern. Um,
Okay, talk to
I
us.
did a little research on this. There's a bit of a short list. There's a young kid out there. His name is Brett Rippon. He's on their practice squad.
Remember Brett?
I
Yep.
recognize that name, and I thought, hang on a minute, where have I heard that before? Oh, ex-Bronco.
Denver Broncos. Yes.
There's a couple of veterans that are floating around. There's another guy on the Titans practice squad. His name is Trevor Simeon. Don't know if you've heard that name before, Jace.
I recall that name from a few seasons ago.
Yeah,
He actually started for the Broncos for a little
he
bit.
did, mate, and I was kind of putting my hope into him. He started off with a
Yeah.
couple of good games, but yet again another ex-Bronco. So, as far as go on the street and pick, the wiliest veteran that's out there at the moment, is probably the biggest name player that you could go for would be a guy named. Have you heard of this bloke? Russell Wilson.
Oh, mate, he's he's a
Ex
he's a dream killer.
Bronco.
I like Russell. I like Russell personally, mate. I follow him online. He's a great bloke personally, but mate, he'll break your heart. He'll break your heart as a Bronco fan. Many a broken heart because of Russell Wilson.
And it kind of concerned me that there was so many ex-Bronco quarterbacks that were out there looking for work, which kind of reminded me of what we've been through since
Mate,
number 18.
it's basically the last decade. We've been all the names that you've been
That's
describing
all
or
we
talking
knew.
about.
That's all we knew.
That's our past decade, mate. That's the last 10 years of the Bronco until hope arrived. Hope has come in the form of Bo Nix, folks.
I'm
Bo
a
Nix.
believer. I'm a
He's a believer.
believer.
As you know, Timbo is a believer. Now, Timbo, let's talk NFC North because the Broncos, we face the Packers this weekend. Mate, this is a really, really tough division. What do you think? Who's going to get the top place in this division, do you reckon?
Mate, I think the Green Bay Packers are the real deal. Jordan Love is a great
Okay.
quarterback. I don't know how he's going to go against our defense. I don't think he's been up against a defense that just will not let you sleep. You just cannot take a play off, whether it's the defensive line, whether we're going to send pressure. I mean, Patrick Surtain is going to shut down their number one guy, like what he did last week. So I just don't think that they've actually come up against a team or with a defense like the Denver Broncos. So I think they're going to struggle, mate. Definitely.
Yeah, you reckon. Well, Timbo, there's a lot happening around the league, and it's very exciting times, mate. I'm excited for what's going to happen over the next couple of weeks as we head towards the playoffs. Very exciting, but big news, Timbo. last week we talked about the Matildas, waltzing Matilda, and how strong they were over our cousins across the ditch, the Kiwis,
We did.
as they go into their Asian Cup campaign. But speaking of cups, the World Cup, Timbo, being hosted in North America and Central America. I guess it's Canada. We got the Americans, the US, and the Mexicans all hosting the World Cup in 2026, 3 countries. And the group draw came out this last week. And, mate, we are a dual citizen sports report. It couldn't have been any better for us, mate. We've got the Aussies in the same draw, the same group as the Americans in Group D. This is the group to watch, Timbo. I reckon this is going to be the group to watch. What are your thoughts? What's the vibe on the street? What are you hearing in the US about this group?
Well, I mean, some people are saying it's rigged. They had Shaquille O'Neal out there drawing names out of the hat. A guy named Donald Trump was drawing. He actually drew out the United States name. Whether you love him, whether you hate him, we got drawn with the United States of America. Mate, they are already bagging us on the street. I've seen pundits around town on the internet. I've been getting DM from people saying, mate, Perko, your boys have got nothing. I keep telling them we're blokes, we're not boys. But I think that the United States is going to be a little shocked. Oh, sure, they've beaten us recently, but, we've got a lot of preparation. The Aussies dig deep, mate. We're diggers. The Aussie battler, team, spirit, pride, the Aussie way, mate, we're going to come and give these US blokes a run for their money.
Mate, it is going to be a great, great World Cup campaign for the Socceroos. And I'm hoping the US does well as well. I for that game, it's going to be hard for me not to have both passports out. But I'll be probably leaning towards the Socceroos for that first group matchup when they face each other. Now, Tim, all the talk is about groups C, F, and I. This is where it's all being talked about at the moment. So Group C, that's going to be a tough one. You got Brazil, Morocco, Haiti, Scotland, an incredible group. That's a big one. Group F, we've got the Netherlands. And then, Timbo, your wife is from Japan, so the Japanese, great team. They've played well in previous World Cups. Tunisia, and then we've got a European, I think this is European playoff number 2.
Correct.
And coming out of this 4-team playoff, we've got Ukraine, Sweden, Poland, Albania. Who do you think's going to be that 4th team in Group F? Where do you think that's going to land?
I'm kind of leaning towards Sweden or Poland, I guess.
Okay. Sweden.
I guess if the mafia have anything to do with it, Albania will be in there for sure.
Easy. Well, but I have to agree, mate. I think it's going to be Sweden. And I think that's going to be a big rivalry between the Netherlands and Sweden. That's going to make for some really fun play on the front end of this group. Group I, Timbo, is another one that people are saying watch out for. France, Senegal. We've seen the Senegalese team do really well in previous World Cups. Norway. And then we've got this Iraq. We've got Bolivia. And I believe that might be, I'm not sure who the 3rd team there in Group I is. Do you know who that is, Timbo?
That'd surely be SUR would be the people, the Surinisia.
Surinisia. We're offending. I think we've just lost an entire country of followers from our podcast, mate, because I think we've just upset an entire country. We'll correct that on next week's podcast. But Group I is another one that people are saying pay attention to. Could be a big group, mate. I'm excited for the World Cup. They're playing games in Canada, the US, and in Mexico. What's your prediction, Timbo? I say that the World Cup, no matter who you are, Australia, the US, makes no difference. You're going to have to make your way through South America and Europe at some point in the tournament. What's your prediction, Timbo? Who do you think's going to take out the World Cup, mate, in 2026?
I mean, that group that England's in is going to be interesting. But, I mean, what can you say? I mean, Messi, best player in the world. Argentina, reigning champs, I believe, from 4 years ago.
That's right.
I just think Argentina are going to be too tough. Who's going to stop Messi? I mean, he's going to be the crowd favorite. He's a great guy. You never see him in the newspapers doing stuff. He's good for the kiddies. It's all for the kids. And I think that Argentina is going to be very tough to beat.
Okay. Well, I think the Spaniards, the English, the French,
Spain,
the
yeah.
Brazilian, mate, I think those four will give them a run for their money. But, mate, Argentina looking very, very good. Timbo, we got to land the plane, mate, but we got one last thing to talk about.
Do we?
The Emirates Cup. Mate, it's already happening. The quarterfinals already happening. Quick update for our listeners. As we're recording this podcast,
Yes.
the Knicks and the Raptors are actually in game right now, and the Orlando Magic have just defeated the Miami Heat.
Yes.
And so they're the Orlando Magic are the first team to go into the Final Four for the Emirates Cup. Who have you got, Knicks or Raptors, Timbo, for the East, the other team? Who do you think's going to be going through?
Mate, I think it's going to be the Knicks. The Knicks will take out the Raptors. Too easy, but my money now, it always has been, obviously, hometown heroes. I'm right behind the Orlando Magic. Got a couple of mates out there that would probably be at that game. Shout out to the boys, Weston and Rick. Mate, I'm Team Orlando all the way. Let's go. We don't need Shaq. We don't need Penny. We've got the boys to be able to take this out.
So you reckon it's going to be Magic versus Knicks for the East Coast, and you think the Orlando Magic will go through? And then we've got two games happening tomorrow, Timbo. We got Suns versus Thunder. That's SGA versus Booker. It's a big matchup, mate. Superstar duel there. And then game 2 tomorrow, Lakers Spurs. And, mate, Wembanyama, he's looking very good. He's a must-watch athlete. He's incredible. Who do you think's going to take it in the West? Who do you think the Magic going to face in the Emirates Cup final?
Mate, I'm looking at big call, mate. I think San Antonio, I'm getting behind them. I've always liked them. Patty Mills started there. So I've always had a bit of a soft spot for those blokes. I do not care for the Lakers whatsoever. And then who was the other mom? Oh, SGA.
Oh,
that kid, you won't stop him, mate. That kid,
Thunder Suns.
Yeah. He is the real deal.
He's a
Look
great
out.
player.
If he's on song, mate, he could score 60, 70 points any night of the week. I think he's going to be tough to shut down.
Well, I got to go against you on a couple of these picks, Timbo. I'm going Knicks over Magic. I think the Knicks have got what it takes to be in the final. And I've got Thunder over the Suns. I got Lakers over the Spurs, of course. And I actually think the Lakers, mate, they're healthy again. I think the Lakers are going to take the Thunder, and they're going to play the Knicks, Knicks in the Emirates Cup final. And I'm picking my Lakers over the Knicks for the Emirates Cup final. But we'll see. We'll see. There's still a few games to be played. We'll see what happens.
It sounds like you're still suffering from sitting out in that Brisbane sun all that time and maybe having too many Abdul Qadirs.
I tell you, mate, 2 days in that hot sun at the Gabba, she was toasty. That's for sure, mate. Well, folks, from pink ball swing at the Gabba to NFL controversy to the World Cup draw, setting the world on fire. This is why we love sports, folks. Two brothers, two hemispheres, mate, endless storylines. There's so much sport between Australia and the US. We will see you next week, Timbo. Last prediction for today. You've got to tell the folks. You asked them last week, why do they call it the Gabba? Can you explain? Can you give the answer?
All of these years, I had no idea. Never even thought about it, to be honest, until we started doing this little podcast. But I found out that there's a place called Wollongabba. Is that Wollongabba?
Wollongabba is the name of the suburb.
Of the suburb where...
And it's actually, technically, the ground is called the Wollongabba Cricket Ground. That is the technical name. You can actually look it up on Google Maps, the Wollongabba Cricket Ground. But it's been shortened to the Gabba. Like everything in Australia, we shorten everything because that's far too long to say. Well, so we just call it the Gabba.
And we seem to have an affinity towards words with W, lots of O's, double L's, double O's. You got Woolloomooloo.
Yeah, well, I think it has a lot to do with our Aboriginal heritage, Timbo.
Wollongong.
The First Nations people. That's where all of those names come from. The Wollongabba.
I thought it was
the Wollongabba is right there with it.
I thought it was because we had a lot of sheep that we imported from New Zealand, so we had a lot of wool.
Well, that's also partly, I would say, the case
Okay.
as well. But
I'll look up.
I think it's more First Nations names of suburbs and things. So, well, folks, it's been a pleasure. Great to be with you again, and we can't wait. Next week, we'll be talking all about the Emirates Cup final. We'll be talking about the NFL playoffs. Mate, there's going to be a lot to talk about with the cricket because the Adelaide Test is coming up, test number 3. So we'll be talking about that as well. Until then, we will see you online. Make sure you like and subscribe, and make sure you follow us on Instagram. You'll see all of the drama, all of the chaos, and a little bit of fun along the way. This is Touchdowns and Tea Breaks.
That's gold.